"You're dramatic," she said. The words did not shout. They just sank, like a small stone into deep water. Before I go on, I want to say this as if we were sitting at my kitchen table together. Smash that like button right now. Subscribe to this channel and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. It helps me feel less alone while I tell this. The kettle is whispering behind me. My hands are wrapped around a warm mug. The steam is soft against my face. In the next room, the baby gives a small cry, then a sigh, then quiet again. The house seems to listen with me. I keep going back to a hallway in the hospital. The walls were pale and the light felt kind. A doctor stood with me and spoke in a gentle voice. She said a simple word that fit the ache in my chest. She called it grief. Grief, not drama, not attention-seeking, not me trying to make a scene. Just the slow, honest pain that rises when life changes faster than the heart can follow. I remember nodding, like my head understood before my heart did. I am telling you this because maybe you have been told that you are too much. Maybe you have felt slower after your own hard season. I had a stroke. A small one, they said. It did not take my life, but it took some speed. It left me with pauses I did not ask for. This story is about those pauses. It is about being misunderstood in a house full of love and noise. It is about the gap between what I meant and what was heard. It is about learning to hold two truths in my hands at the same time. You could call that nuance. I am still learning it. So come close, friend. Picture a small kitchen at night, the kettle quiet now, the mug warm, my shawl over my shoulders, the fabric old and soft. I breathe in and out steady like I am counting my own steps. "You're dramatic," she said, my daughter-in-law, not cruel, only tired. The day had been long. The baby had cried and slept and cried again. Dishes waited like quiet witnesses by the sink. I will not tell this with blame. I will not pretend I did not feel the sting. Both can be true. I was hurt and she was worn out. I was slower after the stroke and she was trying to keep our home spinning. If you stay with me, I will tell you what happened next. I will tell you about the little things that grew into a wall. I will tell you about that hospital hallway and the doctor's kind word. And I will tell you how, in the end, we found a softer way to be together. Let me pour the tea and we can begin. I am a retired school secretary. I spent many years sitting behind a low desk with a bell on the corner. I knew the names of the children and their parents. I knew who forgot a lunch and who needed a kind word. I liked the rhythm of it, the way days had a steady beat. 2 years ago, my husband died. I still keep our recipes on small index cards, with my notes in pencil along the edges. I sing in the church choir on Sundays because it keeps my breath slow and my heart steady. I live alone in a small apartment with thin walls and a friendly view of a tree. In the evenings, I make tea and look at his photo, and I tell him about the day. The photo sits by a small lamp. He is smiling in it, the way his eyes used to smile first. We used to spend Sunday afternoons making soup and humming to old songs on the radio. After he passed, the rooms grew larger than they needed to be. My voice sounded too loud in an empty space. A few months ago, I had a mild stroke. That is what the doctor called it. Mild. It did not take my walking or my memory, but it took some speed. It took the clean edges off my words. Sometimes I would reach for a name and find only fog. It happened in the morning. My left hand tingled while the kettle cried. I tried to call a neighbor, but my tongue felt slow and heavy. The ambulance lights were too bright. The hospital bed was too tidy. The nurse spoke gently, and I tried to listen with all the parts of me that still worked fast. They kept me for a short time. The tests said I was going to be okay with rest and therapy. "Be patient," the doctor said. "Your brain is healing and it needs time." I nodded, but patience is hard when you have been the one who kept the train on time for years. It is hard to forgive your own pauses. I was sent home with papers and a list of exercises. I practiced simple words. I read short paragraphs out loud. I did the little hand movements they gave me, opening and closing like a slow flower. After a while, I could feel my strength, but it was different. It had a softness I did not know before. My son, Daniel, called every day. "Mom, you don't have to be strong all the time," he said. His voice has been gentle since he was a boy. He was my careful child, the one who gathered lost pencils and returned stray mittens. Now he is a man, and he still carries a quiet kindness that makes me want to rest. Daniel and his wife, Maya, have a baby. They named him Eli. He is small and warm, with the softest breath you can imagine. When he sleeps, his legs curl up under him like a little frog in a safe pond. His presence in the room makes the air feel full and important. Maya is thoughtful and neat. She writes things down. She keeps a schedule on the fridge with little blocks for feeding and naps and walks. Order is her way of holding the world still. She is not unkind. She just needs the world to make sense. When I was first home from the hospital, Daniel came with groceries and soup. He put them away like the kitchen belonged to him. He looked around and then looked at me. "Mom," he said, "why don't you come stay with us for a little while?" I said I did not want to be a bother. He shook his head. "You are not a bother," he said, "just for a little while until you feel steady." It is hard to accept help. It feels like stepping from a firm, known path to a softer, unknown one. But the doctor had used that word, help, and I could hear it ring even then. I packed slowly. I put a tin of tea in my bag and my favorite photo frame. I took my shawl, the one my husband gave me on a winter evening long ago. I tucked my recipe cards into a small box. I wrapped my chipped mug in a towel so it would not break. Before I left, I walked around my apartment. I touched the table where I wrote notes. I watered the plant by the window. I told the walls I would be back. My neighbor said she would keep an eye on things. I locked the door with a small prayer. Their house sits on a quiet street. The porch has a step that whispers when you climb it. Daniel opened the door with a smile and a hug. The baby was asleep in a small bassinet by the sofa. The air smelled like laundry and coffee. They had made a room for me. There was a bed with a soft quilt and a small lamp that glowed like a steady star. Maya had put a pitcher of water on the nightstand and a clean glass. "Welcome," she said. Her voice was calm, like she had put thought into the word. The first days were careful but kind. I moved slowly and asked where things went. When I reached for the salt in the kitchen, Maya said, "Oh, I keep it here," and she moved it back to a small shelf. She smiled. "Thank you for helping," she said. I smiled back and tried to remember the new place. Breakfast was quiet. The baby slept late one morning, and Daniel made eggs and toast. I poured tea from my tin. The kettle made its soft call. Everyone meant well. You could feel that in the way we passed plates and looked at each other and tried not to bump into the edges of our fears. I learned the house rhythms bit by bit. Morning was for feeding and wiping little hands. Midday was for naps if the baby agreed. Maya wrote times on a notepad and pinned it to the fridge. Drawers were labeled with clear tape. Spoons, towels, onesies. Everything had a home. I liked that. It made me feel safe. When you are slower, labels are a kindness. I watched where Maya put things and tried to follow her ways. I did not want to make extra work. Daniel worked from a small desk by the window. He would come out between tasks and pick up the baby. He would kiss Maya's shoulder. He would kiss my cheek, too, without words. It felt like being included in a quiet circle. In the afternoons, I would hum little songs while I folded laundry. Old habits returned to my hands. I folded the towels the way I always had, in thirds and then in half. Maya watched one day and smiled a small, tight smile. "I fold them like this," she said softly, and she showed me her way. "It just fits better this way." I nodded and mirrored her. It was not unkind. It was precise. I told myself it was good to learn, good to practice being new. But inside, I felt a small sting, like when you touch a bruise you forgot was there. One morning, Eli fussed after his nap. I went to him without thinking. This is what my body knows how to do. I put a hand on his back and lifted him to my shoulder. He pressed his face against my neck, and we breathed together. Maya came in a moment later. "I've got him," she said with a smile that was tight around the corners, not unkind, just firm. I felt the heat rise to my face. I placed him back gently and stepped aside. "Of course," I said, "of course." I went to the sink and turned on the water. I washed a cup that did not need washing. I told myself I had done nothing wrong and also that I could do better. Two things can be true. That thought helped me stand there a little longer. Most days had a little light in them. Daniel would tell a story at dinner, and we would all laugh. He told one about the time he tried to make pancakes for me when he was 8. The kitchen had flour on the ceiling by the time we were done. "We ate them anyway," I said. "We did," he said, and we smiled at the same memory. I kept going to therapy. Daniel drove me and sat in the waiting room, tapping on his phone and sipping coffee. I met with Dr. Rao, who spoke clearly and slowly like she respected my pace. She gave me simple tasks. "Read this aloud," she said. "Now count backward by 2s. I did what I could and nodded when I needed a rest. "Be kind to your pauses," she said one day. "Your brain is working hard." I wrote that down in my little notebook. Being kind to pauses is harder than it sounds. We want to fill them. We want to move them along. But they need room like seedlings need a patch of sun. At home, I practiced my words. I sat by the window with the plant Maya watered and read small sections from a book. Sometimes I misread a word and smiled at my own mistake. If I tired, I closed my eyes and listened to the baby's breath in the next room. His tiny sounds were soft and steady, like a guide. I tried to help in ways that made sense. I folded bibs and matched socks. I washed lettuce. I made a small pot of stew one afternoon, the kitchen filling with a careful heat. Maya came in and tasted it with a spoon. "It's good," she said. Then she moved the salt back to its shelf without looking. I reminded myself to be a guest. We had good, quiet moments that I hold close. One evening, I hummed an old hymn while I wiped the table. I did not know Maya was listening from the doorway. "That was pretty," she said. I smiled and said thank you. For a moment, I saw how tired she was and how much she was trying. It softened me. On Saturday, we all had pancakes again. Daniel flipped them with a small flourish that made the baby squeal. Syrup left a sticky ring on the table, and we laughed as we cleaned it up. "He likes the sound," Maya said, watching Eli's face. I thought, he likes the joy. He recognizes it. The small misunderstandings still came, like little pebbles in a shoe. I put the spices in a row that felt logical to me, cumin next to coriander, paprika near the chili. Later, I found them back where she kept them. It made sense to her, and it was her kitchen. I told myself that, and I meant it, but I still felt a small pull of sadness. I called my friend Lena from the choir. I sat on the edge of my bed with my shawl over my shoulders and told her how I was. "It's new," I said. "Everything is new." She listened and reminded me to breathe. "Sing to yourself," she said, "even when you cannot sing out loud." Sometimes in the late afternoon, Maya would make tea and pour a cup for me too. We would stand at the counter, not quite knowing what to talk about besides the baby's nap. "He slept 40 minutes, she would say. "That's good," I would say. It was simple. It was enough for those minutes. At night, I would write a few lines in a small journal. I wrote what I cooked or what I read, but I also wrote how I felt. I wrote, "I am grateful and I am tired, and this is hard, and this is good." The truth needs more than one sentence. It needs a small stack sometimes. I made promises to myself in those pages. I wrote, "I will ask before I help." I wrote, "I will be helpful, not in the way." I wrote, "I will be quiet when quiet is needed." I wrote, "I will try to be brave when being seen feels like too much." The house had its own sounds. The floorboard near the pantry creaked when you stepped on it. The washing machine thumped like a steady heart. The white noise machine by the baby's cot rushed like a soft river. I learned to know the time by what I could hear. I set up a small corner in my room. I put my husband's photo on the nightstand and my index cards in the top drawer. I folded my shawl neatly at the foot of the bed. I placed my chipped mug on a little plate so it would not mark the wood. These were my anchors. They made a borrowed room mine. Sometimes, I sat on the edge of the bed and listened to Maya move through the house. Her steps were quick, precise. She opened and closed drawers like she was keeping a beat. I wondered what it felt like to carry so much care for a tiny person and still keep the kitchen clean and the laundry folded and the work emails answered. I felt respect and a little fear, too. On good mornings, I sang a scale in the shower. The water helped me find my breath. I would hold a note and feel it steady in my chest. It reminded me that the body can heal in small ways we do not see. It reminded me that love can be quiet and still be strong. When I held Eli, when I was allowed to hold him, I felt my heart loosen. His weight rested on me like a promise that the world keeps making. His fingers curled around mine, and he sighed like everything was in order. I tried to be a calm place for him. I tried to match his soft rhythm. And through all of it, I kept the promise I made to myself. I told myself I am a guest. I told myself I will be helpful, not in the way. I told myself I will be quiet. I told myself these things the way you tell a child to look both ways before crossing the street, slowly, kindly, more than once. I thought if I kept those promises, everything would be simple. But families are not simple, even when there is love. Homes have corners where old feelings sit. Healing has days when it hides. We were learning each other. We were learning the new version of me, and the days kept moving, one after another in their careful, human way. The small frictions began with the spoon drawer. It sounds silly even now to say it out loud. But every week, the spoons seemed to live in a new place. I would open the drawer to set the table, and my hands would go to one corner while the spoons hid in another. I would move them to what felt logical to me, small spoons in front, big serving spoons in the back, soup spoons off to the side. Later, I would find them back where Maya kept them. She had her own logic, and it was not wrong. It was just different. She said, "I keep the smaller spoons here because I grab them at night for Eli's medicine." I nodded, and I tried to remember. I thought I was helping her when I put them in neat rows, and she thought she was helping me when she put them back where they belonged. The drawer became a quiet conversation we didn't know we were having. I would touch the cool handles and breathe in, counting to 3. I would tell myself, this is not about spoons. This is about learning a new home. Still, each time I reached into the empty space where a spoon had been, something inside me felt a small, tender shift. Bath time brought another little pebble to the shoe. Eli loved his bath. He kicked in the shallow water and blinked against the thin foam. I used to warm towels by the heat vent for Daniel when he was a baby. I liked the way the towel would hold the warmth for a moment, like a hug that waited. So one afternoon, while the bath water ran, I draped a clean towel over the vent. Maya came in, took one look, and lifted the towel with 2 fingers. "It's too hot," she said. Her voice was flat with tiredness. "His skin is sensitive right now." I felt my face warm as if I had picked up the towel myself. "I always warmed the towel for Daniel," I said, softly like a memory. "It made him calm after the bath." Maya shook her head and hung a different towel on a hook. "We do it this way," she said. The water kept its gentle sound. I stepped back from the tub and held the corner of a washcloth. Eli didn't know any of this. He only knew that the water was warm and that the room smelled like lavender soap. But when Maya lifted him out, she wrapped him in a towel that was room temperature, and I kept my hands close to my sides, like I was keeping promises in them. Breakfast brought a moment I still think about. I stood at the counter with my own mug of tea, and bright oranges sat in a bowl beside the bread. I reached toward Daniel and said, "Could you pass the round thing?" I could see the color in my mind. I could see the smooth skin, the little star on top, but the word would not come. Daniel passed me an orange like it was the most natural thing in the world. "Here you go, Mom," he said. Maya's eyes flicked from the orange to my face, quick as a blink. I could not tell if she was worried or impatient. Both look similar when you are tired. I peeled the orange in slow spirals, trying to make the strip of skin into one long ribbon. I told myself it was okay to forget a word. I told myself the doctor had said it would happen. When I saw Dr. Rao that week, I told her about the orange. I told her about the spoon drawer and the towel. I kept my voice calm, but I did not hide the ache. She listened like the hallway around us was part of her ears. "After a stroke," she said, "feelings sometimes feel bigger." She rested her palms on her knees. "But big feeling is not bad, it's a message." I nodded and watched her mouth shape the words. She spoke slowly, like she trusted my pace. "There is nuance," she said. "It's not always either or. You can be healing and still feel frustrated. You can be grateful and still feel the loss of your old speed." The word nuance felt like a small, smooth stone in my pocket. I rolled it around in my thoughts and kept it with me as I walked back to the car. At home, I tried to carry nuance into the kitchen. One afternoon, I pulled carrots from the bottom drawer and lined them up on the cutting board. I wanted to make stew. I wanted the house to smell like cumin and onions and the slow comfort of tomatoes and meat. As I reached for the knife, Maya came in with her phone and a bag of groceries. "We were planning to order in tonight," she said. I froze with my hand on the handle. "Oh," I said. I put the knife back down. "Of course." "I promised myself a break," she said, and her voice softened. "I'm so tired today." I nodded and put the carrots back in the drawer. I moved slowly so the carrots would not bump. Later, when the delivery driver knocked and handed over warm boxes, I smiled and breathed in the smell of garlic and oil. I took a plate and ate quietly, telling myself I was not unnecessary, only paused. There was an evening when Daniel was late from work. The baby had a day of short naps and long cries. The light outside had a grayness that made everything feel a little heavy. I heard Eli's cry rise and fall like a small siren, and I walked to his bassinet on instinct. I lifted him, and his body softened against mine like warm bread in a cloth. Maya came around the corner and stopped. "Please put him down," she said. Her voice was tight, the kind of tight that comes from holding your breath too long. "He needs to self-soothe." The word felt like a big word for a small person. I looked at Eli's face and at Maya's face, and I put him back down. "Of course," I said. "Of course." I stepped back and waited, feeling like I had tried to give help and had been given a rule instead. I went to the kitchen and turned on the kettle. The kettle takes the same amount of time no matter what kind of day you are having. It whispers, and then it sings, and then it rests. I poured water over a tea bag and watched the color bloom. "Two things can be true," I told myself quietly. "She has a plan, and I miss holding him." The tea was hot and steady. It warmed my hands even as my chest stayed cool. The spoon drawer drifted again the next week. I opened it, and the soup spoons were in the front, and the teaspoons were in a small cup, and the wooden spoon lived in a jar by the stove. None of it was wrong. It just surprised me. I moved 2 spoons to the front for the baby's cereal, thinking it might help Maya in the morning. Later, I found those 2 back in the cup. I smiled at the drawer like it had told a joke only I could hear. Small things piled up quietly. I put the bath thermometer in a basket near the tub. Maya put it on the shelf by the mirror. I folded burp cloths in a little stack. She rolled them into tight tubes and stood them up in a basket like white flowers. I closed the bathroom door with 2 fingers so it would not click. The latch still clicked. Eli startled, and I held my breath. One afternoon, I forgot the word for microwave. I pointed and said, "The wave, the little box," and Maya said, not unkindly, "Microwave." "Yes," I said, "microwave." The word sat heavy in my mouth. I carried it around for the rest of the day, turning it over so it would not slip away again. That night in my journal, I wrote microwave, and then I wrote, "It is okay to be slower." I wrote, "It is okay to be new." Daniel tried to make light where he could. He texted me from the other room. "Wanna watch that baking show?" We sat together, and the soft clatter of bowls and the quiet pride of people baking beautiful things filled the room. When the judges spoke gently to someone who failed, I felt a wash of kindness I wanted to live inside. I thought, if only all criticism sounded like this. The day I said my chest felt heavy, I did not think I was asking for much. It was evening. The dishes were done. The baby had finally fallen asleep. The light in the living room was low and soft. I put my hand over my heart and rubbed small circles, the way you rub warmth into a bird if it falls from a nest. "My chest feels heavy," I said. My voice was small and honest. Maya was putting toys into a basket. She did not look up. "You're being dramatic," she said. "It's just a long day." The words fell into the room like a stone into deep water. They made a sound you could not hear. They made ripples I felt under my skin. I did not argue. I did not say the word grief or stroke or "I'm scared." I stood and walked to my room. The floorboard near the pantry creaked, and I wished it did not. I closed the door with both hands and sat on the edge of the bed. I could still hear the soft rush of the white noise machine and the small restlessness of the house settling. I took out my journal. My hand shook, not from the stroke, but from being human. I wrote, "Two things can be true. She is tired. I am hurt." I underlined hurt with the tip of my pen once. I wrote, "It is not drama to feel the weight of a day." I wrote, "Remember Dr. Rao, remember nuance." I closed the book and placed it on the nightstand beside my husband's photo. In the morning, I reached for my chipped mug, the one wrapped in the towel when I first came. It had a small chip on the rim that I always avoided, like a street you know to step around. I poured tea, and the steam rose in a gentle ribbon. My hand was still a little unsteady. When I turned to put the kettle back, the mug slid from my grasp and fell. The sound of the mug breaking made a bright note in the quiet kitchen. It shattered into a scatter of white and a small blue pattern that looked like flowers. I crouched on the floor and gathered the larger pieces, holding them carefully by the edges. My hand shook more. I felt ridiculous and small, like a child in a big coat. Maya was there quickly, broom in hand. "I'll do it," she said, brisk and efficient like the captain of a ship correcting the course. "Don't move, there are small shards." I froze because I did not know where to put my hands. She swept in quick strokes and the pieces made a soft scraping sound as they came together. "Are you cut?" she asked, eyes flicking to my fingers. "No," I said, "I'm fine." The lie was not about blood. The loss was small and not small. It was a mug, yes, but it was also a piece of my morning, a piece of my old life. Maya tipped the dustpan into the trash. "We have plenty of mugs," she said. The words were true. The truth did not reach me. I nodded and brushed my palms together even though there was nothing on them. Daniel came into the kitchen a moment later. "Everything okay?" he asked. Maya nodded. "Mom dropped a mug," she said. "No problem." Daniel looked at me a bit longer. "You okay?" he asked again, softer. "Yes," I said. "It happens." He put a hand on my shoulder. It was a small anchor. That evening, Daniel tried to be a bridge. He sat between us at the table and spoke in a voice that wanted peace. "Mom," he said, "Maya is just stressed. She hasn't slept through the night in months." He turned to her. "Maya, Mom is trying her best. She just wants to help." He looked tired in the way people look tired when they are trying to hold two ends of a rope that keep moving. I smiled and nodded like smiling and nodding could end a war. Maya nodded, too, and took a breath. "I know," she said. "I know she's trying." For a moment, there was a peace that looked like agreement. It did not last long, but it was something. I learned then that agreement is not the same as understanding. Both can look similar from a distance. That night, I lay in bed and let the dark room settle around me. I thought about how often I used to be the one who fixed things. I had taped broken book spines. I had stitched buttons back onto coats. I had learned people's schedules and knotted them into one rope. Now, I was the one who broke mugs and needed help remembering where the spoons went. The next day, the spoon drawer changed again. I laughed out loud, and the sound surprised me. "I see you," I said to the drawer. I placed my hand flat on the counter to steady myself. It is a strange relief to laugh when you are sad. It feels like the body knows something your mind does not yet know. I offered to take out the trash before dinner. Maya smiled and said, "Thank you," and I took the bag, feeling useful. On my way out, the bag caught on the edge of the bin and tore a little. A thin stream of coffee grounds left a line like a trail. I kept walking to the outside bin and tied the bag as best I could. When I came back, Maya had already wiped the floor. She did it quickly, without words. I felt both grateful and replaced. When I tried to read to Eli, I used my therapy book voice, slow and clear. He liked the pictures. He reached for the page with his soft hand and patted the drawn dog. Maya stood close and I felt her breath on my hair. "Hold the book higher," she said. "He's stretching his neck too much." I lifted the book and smiled at Eli. "There," I said. He patted the dog again. I told myself this was small. I told myself it was fine, and it was, and it was. A day later, I tried to fold the baby's blanket the way I had seen Maya do it, into a tight roll that fit perfectly in the drawer. My fingers did not obey the way I hoped. They were clumsy and slow. The roll was loose, and the blanket unraveled as soon as I moved my hands away. I felt my throat fill with a small river, and I swallowed until it quieted. "Come," I told myself inside. "Be kind to the pause." Sometimes I caught myself telling stories out of order. I would begin with the end and then step back to the beginning. Daniel listened. He always listened. "Start again," he would say gently. "I'm with you." Maya often passed by, a blur of work and care. She offered a nod if our eyes met, as if to say, "I see you, even if I cannot stop right now." One afternoon, while the baby napped, I stood at the sink and looked out the window at the tree in their yard. Its leaves made a soft pattern against the sky. I took a breath in and held it for a count of 4, the way Dr. Rao taught me. I let it out for a count of 6. I did it again. The house was quiet, the kind of quiet that reaches into you and fills your ears and slows your heart. I thought about my husband, how he would have laughed at the spoon drawer and whispered, "Let it be, love." I thought about how he would have warmed the towel and sat on the floor by the tub, his knees aching a little, and made boats out of his hands. I thought about how grief does not always knock. Sometimes it just sits beside you on a chair and watches you breathe. There were good moments still in those days. Maya placed a cup of tea by my elbow while I washed lettuce. "I made it how you like it," she said. She had noticed, somehow, that I liked my tea strong and with 1 sugar. I said thank you and meant it. She went back to the baby and the emails and the drawer that held the things she needed to put the day in order. But that sentence kept its own small corner in my chest. "You're being dramatic," she had said. It sat there and waited. It made the ground under my feet feel less certain. It made the tea less warm. It made the spoon drawer feel like a test I was failing. I told myself to let it pass. I told myself to be bigger than 1 sentence. Some days I could, some days I could not. Daniel tried again to be in the middle. "We're all adjusting," he said on a day when everything felt thin. "It's not easy for anyone." He looked at me like he wanted me to agree so the air would change. I nodded. "I know," I said, "I know." He went to Maya and said, "Mom is really trying," and I could hear Maya answer from the other room, "I know, I am too." The echo of "I know" filled the house like a polite curtain. In my journal, I wrote, "What I want is not control, it is belonging." I wrote, "What she wants is not distance, it is safety." I wrote, "2 things can be true." I underlined true and then drew a small square around it. It felt like the only shape I could draw that looked like a room you could stand in. The next week, I tried again to offer dinner. "What if I make stew tomorrow?" I asked in the afternoon, early enough that there would be time to change the plan. "It helps me to chop," I added. Maya looked at the calendar on the fridge. "Tomorrow is the lactation consultant," she said. "I don't know what time we'll be home." She looked back at me. "Let's play it by ear." "Of course," I said. I took my recipe card out of the small box and placed it back in. I put the onion away in the drawer with the potatoes. Later, I heard Daniel say, quietly, "Maybe we can let Mom cook once this week," and Maya said something I could not hear. Their voices were soft, like they were trying to keep the peace asleep. The bathtub incident came back in another form. I set a towel on the edge of the sink to fold it while the water ran. Maya came in and turned the water off. "He's cold when he comes out," I said. "I know," she said, "but we're working on transitions." The word sat in the air between us, a small, professional word. I nodded as if I had read the same pamphlet. I did not say, "I am a transition." Some nights I woke before dawn and lay in bed with my eyes open. The white noise from the baby's room hissed like a calm sea. I could hear a car pass on the street outside and then the soft, quiet return. I counted my breaths. I thought of the hospital hallway and Dr. Rao's word. Nuance. It is a word you cannot hold completely. You have to let it rest on your palm with a little air beneath. I tried to talk to Maya one morning when the house was quiet. "Thank you for letting me stay," I said. I wanted to open a small door to a longer talk. She smiled quickly. "Of course," she said. Her phone buzzed on the counter. The baby made a sound on the monitor. The door closed without either of us touching it. Daniel suggested a walk after dinner. We put Eli in the stroller and went down the block. The air was cool, and the sky held that pale light that comes just after sunset. Maya walked with her hands on the stroller handle, eyes on the road ahead, pushing steady. I walked beside her and kept my pace careful. Daniel walked on the other side, telling a story about a coworker's joke that landed badly. We smiled. We came home. The spoon drawer still had its secret. The day after the mug broke, Maya put a new mug on the counter. It had blue birds painted around the rim. "This is for you," she said. "It's lighter to hold." I picked it up and nodded. "Thank you," I said. It was a kind act. The kindness and the loss sat side by side like 2 people waiting for a bus. Neither moved the other away. Both existed. I watched Maya with Eli in the late afternoons when the light came through the window in a soft square. She laid him on a blanket and made faces, and he laughed like a small bell. She was good with him. That is the truth. I was good with him, too. That is also the truth. The truths did not cancel each other out. They hummed together, a chord that was not always easy to hear. The line about being dramatic visited again in my mind when my chest felt tight after climbing the stairs. I sat in the hallway and waited for my breath to match me. I considered calling out. I did not. I did not want the word to fall on me again. I waited until the air and I made a pact. I stood slow. I went to the kitchen and made tea. I held the blue bird mug like it knew something. That night, Daniel found me sitting at the table with the mug near my hands. "Mom," he said, "are you okay?" His face was open in that way that makes you feel like you can step into it and rest. "I'm okay," I said, "just thinking." He sat. "About?" he asked. I looked at him and at the hallway and at the closed door to the baby's room. "About how to be here," I said. He nodded. "We're figuring it out," he said. He went to Maya after and spoke softly. I heard my name and then the murmur of other words. I wanted to be a breeze that could slip between them and here. I wanted to be a wall so they could lean on me. I stayed at the table and traced the handle of the mug with my finger. The birds did not fly. They only looked like they could. Before sleep, I opened my journal and wrote, "The spoon drawer is not the point." I wrote, "The towel is not the point." I wrote, "The word dramatic is heavy." I wrote, "Nuance." I filled a small page with the word, writing it over and over until it looked strange and beautiful and true. Daniel's diplomacy kept the air from breaking. It did not fix the ground beneath our feet. He would say to me, "Maya is just stressed." And he would say to Maya, "Mom is trying her best." He floated between us like someone crossing a creek on stones, choosing each step with care. Sometimes he slipped a little. Sometimes he made it to the other side. Always he was wet up to his ankles and he never complained. I wanted to take that job from him. I wanted to say, "You do not have to be in the middle," but I did not know how to say it without making more waves. So I did what I could. I wrote in my journal. I folded laundry twice if I had to. I practiced my words. I made tea when the house felt thin. I warmed my hands and told myself I was still me. The days moved forward one after another, steady as a train you cannot see but can feel in the ground. The spoon drawer, the bath towel, the orange and the microwave, the mist stew, the small new mug with bluebirds, the sentence that sat like a stone, the word nuance that sat like a prayer. All of it was real. All of it was part of our slow learning. We were trying, each in our own way, to keep the home spinning without losing ourselves. Two things can be true. And in the space between them, we started to feel the shape of what might come next. The afternoon light lay across the hallway like a soft blanket. The house was quiet in that special way when the baby has finally fallen asleep. I moved slowly, carrying a small basket of clean bibs to the nursery. My steps matched my breath. In, out, soft, careful. As I passed the doorway to the office, I heard Maya's voice. It was low, fast, and flat. She was on the phone. I did not mean to listen, but the words came out of the room and found me. They were like small stones thrown, not at me, but toward the empty space where I stood. "It's too much," she said. The words were tired and sharp at the same time. "She's so dramatic. I can't be her caretaker, too. It feels like a burden." I froze. The basket rested against my hip. My hand gripped the woven edge so hard that it left lines in my palm. The word burden burned. It did not yell. It just warmed like a metal spoon left in a pot too long. I stood there a few seconds longer, trying to decide if I had heard what I heard. The fridge hummed in the kitchen. The white noise machine in the baby's room whispered. Maya's voice dropped to a murmur. I could not hear the rest. I did not knock. I did not step inside and say, "Can we talk?" I turned and walked the other way. My legs felt new and untrustworthy. The light felt too bright. I took the basket to my room, placed it on the chair, and sat on the edge of the bed. I picked up my shawl and pulled it around my shoulders. The wool was soft from years of holding me. I pressed it to my chest, as if it could shield me from a single word. My breath changed. It became small and shallow, like I was trying not to be noticed by my own lungs. Burden, the word was not heavy by itself. It was heavy because it was linked to love I wanted to carry with open hands. I thought about the spoon drawer, the towel, the orange. I thought about the new mug with the blue birds that tried to make a bridge where a mug could not possibly make one. I do not know how long I sat there. The room had that late day light that makes the edges soft. I could hear a car pass outside and feel the house settle a little as if it were breathing too. I picked up my journal. My hand shook. I wrote, I heard the word burden. I wrote, I feel like I am breaking open. I stood and walked to the small desk by the window. I pulled a blank piece of paper from the drawer. My handwriting looked like someone else's for a moment, the letters thinner than usual. I wrote, thank you for everything. I will be back tomorrow. I just need air. I underlined air. I needed air like I needed a door. I folded the paper and left it on the kitchen table, weighted by the blue bird mug. I tried to make it look calm, not desperate. I took my bag from the back of the chair in my room and put my wallet inside and a few tissues and my small notebook. I stood in the doorway and looked at the bed, the lamp, the photo of my husband. Watch me, I whispered to the photo, just for a little while. I tucked the shawl tighter around my shoulders. I moved through the house like a ghost, trying not to wake anyone. The floorboard near the pantry creaked anyway. It always does. I winced and kept going. The house felt far away, even when my hand still rested on its doors and walls. I touched the edge of the hallway and the smooth paint. I touched the table where we ate and the chair where I sat. I looked at the closed door to the baby's room and bowed my head for a breath. Outside, the air met me with a cool hand. It felt clean. The sky was pale blue with thin clouds like torn fabric. I walked down the porch steps, holding the rail. The street was quiet. The neighbors' yards were neat. Somewhere a dog barked once, then settled. I walked toward the park without a plan, just a direction. The lake there was small, more like a big pond. It held the sky gently. I have always liked water. It listens, even when it moves. I kept my pace even and told myself I had time. At the park, the benches waited like they always do, patient and plain. I chose one near the lake where the light made a bright path across the surface. I sat down and placed my bag beside me. I kept my shawl around my shoulders. The wind lifted the loose hair near my ear and then let it fall. My breath was still high and thin. I tried to count it the way Dr. Rao taught me. In for 4, out for 6. I made it to 2 rounds before my head went light. The trees moved in slow motion. The world tilted in a way that made me feel like I was on a boat I had not chosen. Words scattered. It is a strange thing to feel words leave the inside of your mouth and not return. I reached into my bag for my phone. I wanted to call Daniel. I wanted to text I'm okay, and also I don't know. The letters on the screen looked like brush strokes. My fingers hovered. A shadow fell across my lap gently. Is that you? A soft voice said. I looked up and saw Mrs. Green. She lives 2 buildings down from my old apartment. We have shared small comments about weather and flowers for years. Her hair is white and pulled back in a tidy clip. Her eyes are kind. Mrs. Green, I said, but the words came out like marbles. She sat down without asking. She did not touch me yet. She folded her hands in her lap and looked at me the way women used to look at each other on church steps. You're okay, she said. Breathe with me. She counted softly. In, 2, 3, 4, out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I tried to follow. In, out. The lake kept moving. The wind kept moving. We sat together like that for a minute, maybe more, breathing to the same slow drum. I think I should call someone, she said, and I nodded. Nodding was simple. She took out her phone and spoke into it calmly. We're at the lake near the willow tree, she said. Yes, she's breathing, but she's lightheaded. She had a stroke a few months ago. She looked at me for confirmation. I nodded again. My hands felt like they did not belong to me. I placed them flat on the bench and looked at the grain of the wood. A man walking his dog came by and paused. Do you need help? He asked Mrs. Green. An ambulance is on the way, she said. He nodded and stood a little distance away, as if his presence could keep us from floating away. The siren came softly, like it was careful not to startle the birds. When the ambulance pulled up, 2 paramedics stepped out with calm faces. One knelt in front of me so our eyes were level. Hello, she said. I'm Anna. Can I ask you a few questions? I nodded. Are you having chest pain? She asked. Heavy, I said. The word was slow but clear. Chest is heavy. She nodded and placed a small clip on my finger. The other paramedic wrapped a cuff around my arm. It squeezed and then it let go. Any tingling? He asked. Left hand, I said, and wiggled my fingers. He nodded too. Have you had anything like this before? Anna asked. "A few months ago," I said. "A stroke." The word was easier than orange had been. She looked at me with eyes that said she heard me. "Okay," she said. "We're going to take you in and let the doctors take a look. You're not alone." They helped me stand, and I felt the ground like a friend who had forgotten my name. I walked with them to the ambulance, one step, then another. Mrs. Green touched my shoulder. "I'll call your son," she said. I tried to say thank you, and something like it came out. She understood anyway. Inside the ambulance, the lights were soft. The stretcher held me in a gentle grip. They stuck small circles to my chest and attached wires that hummed their own tiny song. The sirens stayed quiet. We moved through the city like a slow boat, steady, sure. At the hospital, the air smelled the way hospitals do, clean and a little like lemons and something that tells you to be careful. Nurses moved with purpose. They took my blood, they listened to my heart. They spoke to me like I was whole, which I needed to hear. They left me in a room with a monitor that beeped softly. The sound did not scare me. It reminded me that something outside of me was keeping time when I could not. I stared at the ceiling where a small crack looked like a river on a map. I thought of the word burden and how it had felt like a gust of wind that swept the ground out from under my shoes. Dr. Rao came in. Her face brought the hallway with it, calm, kind. She washed her hands in the little sink and pulled up a chair. "You did the right thing coming in," she said. Her voice was a warm blanket. "Tell me what happened." I told her as best I could. The call, the park, the breath, Mrs. Green. I told her about the word I heard. I did not say Maya's name because I did not need to. Dr. Rao listened the way she always does, with her whole body turned toward me. "You didn't do anything wrong," she said. "Your body remembers a loss and calls it pain. And grief is not drama, it just does not fit neatly into a schedule." She looked at the monitor and then back at me. "Your heart is okay," she said. "Your tests look good. This heaviness is real, but it is not a heart attack. It is your body saying, 'I am overwhelmed.'" Her words settled in the space around my ribs. The rush, the sting, the shallow breath, they all had names that did not blame me. I closed my eyes and felt 2 tears slip out and find the edge of my ears. "I felt silly," I said. "I felt childish." The word felt raw. "Not childish," she said. "Human." She leaned back a little. "After a stroke, emotions can surge. The filters you used to have get thinner sometimes. The feelings are not new, they are just nearer the surface." She paused. "It is grief," she said again. "No less real because it is quiet." Grief, nuance. The words sat side by side in my mind like 2 chairs pulled close. "2 things can be true," I whispered. "I was hurt, and she is tired." Dr. Rao nodded. "Yes," she said. "2 things can be true. You are both carrying something heavy, even if it is a different kind of heavy." She touched the chair arm with her palm. "I will let them bring your family back," she said. "We will talk together if you want." I nodded. "Yes," I said. "Please." She stood and left as quietly as she had come. The monitor kept up its soft pulse. I looked at my hands and saw the small tremor that was not fear exactly, and not weakness. It was the way a leaf trembles when the air notices it. I took another breath in, another breath out, and tried to be kind to my pause. Daniel came in first. His eyes were wide in that way that makes a person look younger. "Mom," he said, and his voice broke on the word. He came to the bed and took my hand, the way a child takes a mother's hand without thinking. "I went for air," I said. It was the truest thing I could say. "Are you okay?" he asked. He looked at the monitor like it could tell him more than it could. "They say I am," I said. "My heart is fine, it was a surge." He nodded, but his grip stayed tight. "I'm sorry I wasn't there," he said. "I should have been there." I shook my head. "No," I said. "You are here now." Maya came a few minutes later. Her face looked washed, like she had splashed cold water on it and then forgotten to dry it. Her eyes were red around the edges. She stood near the door for a second, then came in and stood near the foot of the bed. "I said something unkind," she said. Her voice was small. She did not dress it up. Silence can be a gentle thing or a hard thing. This one was gentle. It gave us room to decide what to put in it. I looked at her, and I saw not just the woman who had said the word that pierced me. but the woman who had been trying to hold her home steady with a baby in her arms and a schedule on her wall. "It hurt," I said. I did not add anything to it. The words were enough. The monitor beeped like it agreed. Maya nodded, and tears filled her eyes without falling yet. "I am drowning," she said. "I am so tired. When I try to hold everything, I drop kindness first." She swallowed. "I hate that." She shook her head once, small. "I hate that about myself lately." There was no excuse in her words, only truth. It reached me. Truth recognizes truth. I felt something unclench just a little under my ribs. "I heard a piece of your call," I said. "The word burden." I let the word out into the room where it could breathe. It sounded smaller than it had in the hallway. Maya closed her eyes and opened them again. "I said that," she whispered. "I was talking to my sister. I was scared. I felt like I had 3 Bobbies, Eli, work, and my own heart. When I said burden, I meant the load, not your worth, but I know words cut." She put her hands over her face for a moment, then she lowered them. "I'm sorry." Dr. Rao stepped back in like a gentle tide returning. She looked at all of us, at Daniel holding our son, at Maya with her hands open, at me lying small but not broken in a bed. She pulled a chair closer. "Two things can be true," she said softly. "You are both carrying something heavy. You both want this home to feel safe." She looked at Daniel. "You want to fix it, but fixing is not always the first step." Daniel nodded, his eyes blinking too fast. He rocked Eli, who had fallen asleep on his chest during the ride. The sight of my grandson's lashes against his cheek brought air back into the room. Bobbies sleep like they are sure of the world, even when the world trembles. Dr. Rao spoke simply. "When our bodies change, our roles shift. It's messy. It's okay that it's messy," she said. "But we have to name what is happening so that we don't hurt each other more." She looked at me. "You are grieving your old strength and speed. You reach out because you want to belong. That is not control. That is longing." She turned to Maya. "You are grieving your old life too," she said. "The one where your home stayed still. You protect your routines because they hold you together. That is not rejection. That is fear and need." Maya's shoulders dropped a little, like the words had taken some weight off her. I felt something light touch me inside, like a bird had landed on a branch within me and decided to rest. Nuance. I said the word in my mind and let it stay there. "I did not want to be cared for like a child," I said quietly. "I wanted to be part of the caring. I wanted to belong." Maya moved closer to the bed. She did not reach out, not yet. "I know," she said. "I have kept the house so tight that there wasn't room for your way. I told myself it was all for Eli, but it was also so I would not come apart." She looked at the tiles on the floor. "I lost my kindness this month. I didn't mean to." "You didn't lose it," I said. "It just moved. We will find it." My voice surprised me. It sounded like my own mother for a moment, steady and sure. I looked at Eli. His tiny mouth opened and closed as he dreamed. His fingers twitched. He was the smallest person in the room and also the biggest reason we were all here. Dr. Rao asked if we wanted to make a small plan for the night and the next day. Not a big plan, just a gentle one. We nodded. "Tonight," she said, "you rest here, you are safe, your heart is okay. Tomorrow we talk about steps. Perhaps a social worker can help with resources. Perhaps we shift some routines so that help feels like help." She looked at Maya. "You need rest," she said simply. "This is not a judgment. It is a fact. We cannot pour from an empty cup." Maya gave a small laugh at that phrase, like she had heard it too many times and had only now decided to let it be true. Daniel looked between us. He looked like someone who had been carrying 2 bags and realized he could set one down on the floor for a while. "I can take more," he said. "I will, I should have." I shook my head. "We will take turns," I said. "We will not be martyrs. That is not love, that is performance." We were quiet then. The monitor kept its soft count. The hallway outside kept moving, nurses, shoes a hush on the floor. A cart rolled by with a small clink. Inside the room, time slowed enough for breath to be heard. We were in the eye of our own small storm. I lifted my hand from the blanket and held it out. It was not a grand gesture. It was simple. Maya looked at it for a second and then placed her hand in mine. Her skin was warm and a little damp, like she had been holding onto her own hands tightly and finally let go. Daniel shifted closer with Eli, and for a moment, We formed our own small circle. "I want us to be a family," I said, "not a project." My voice was a whisper. The words were all I had. Maya nodded. "Me too," she said. "Me too." We sat like that, not saying much. Eli slept through it. His breath was the softest sound in the room, like a tiny river we could all drink from. I watched his chest rise and fall and remembered Daniel at that size, his fist closed on my finger, the years ahead like pages we had not turned. I turned my head and looked at Dr. Rao. "Thank you," I said, "for naming it." She smiled. "Names help," she said. "They make invisible things visible." She stood, and her chair made a small sound on the floor. "I will check on you again in the morning." After she left, the room held our bodies and our truths like a bowl holds fruit. The shine, the bruise, the weight, the sweetness, all of it in one place. I felt the heaviness in my chest loosen. It did not leave, but it loosened. That was enough for that hour. Maya wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "I will do better," she said. "I cannot promise perfect, but I can promise to pause before I say something sharp." I nodded. "I can promise to ask before I do something," I said. "I can promise to remember this is your nest." The words felt right inside my mouth for the first time in days. Daniel laughed softly, a sound like someone opening a window. "Listen to us," he said. "We sound like we are making vows." He rocked Eli a little, and the baby sighed. It felt like a blessing. I looked at Maya's face again. She had always been pretty to me in a tidy way. In that moment, she looked beautiful because she looked human. Her hair was pulled back, and a few pieces had escaped and framed her face. Her eyes were tired but awake. She looked like a mother. She looked like a daughter, too. It is strange how those roles can share a face. "Will you sleep at home tonight?" I asked her. "Yes," she said. "I will take Eli home. Daniel will stay with you." She glanced at him, and he nodded. She smiled at me, small and true. "I will bring your shawl tomorrow," she added, and we both realized I was wearing it already. We laughed, quick as the chirp of a bird. When she left, she touched my shoulder lightly. It was not dramatic. It was enough. Daniel sat in the chair by the bed and put his feet up on the little foot rail, like he had done this before in another life. "Do you want me to read to you?" he asked. "Yes," I said. He pulled a hospital brochure from the drawer and read the simple sentences aloud, making both of us laugh. I closed my eyes while he read, and the words became waves. I thought of the park bench and the lake and Mrs. Green's voice counting. I thought of how the body calls for help in its own language and how we do better when we learn to listen without shame. I let my mind rest on the word nuance like a raindrop on a leaf. It balanced there, complete and fragile. I thought, two things can be true. I can be hurt and still see her. She can be afraid and still love me. The thought did not fix everything. It did not need to. It just laid a path we could step on. I drifted for a while, then woke to the soft sound of Eli breathing and Daniel's low hum of a tune I used to sing in the kitchen. The room was dim now, and the monitor light made a small green star on the wall. I felt safe. I felt small. I felt like someone who had been caught before she fell too far. In the morning, they would come with breakfast trays and smiles that try to be cheerful. In the morning, Dr. Rao would return with her calm and her suggestions. In the morning, we would talk about next steps. But in that hour, in that small square of night, we held hands and found stillness. I opened my eyes and looked at the baby I loved and the son I raised and thought about the woman who had married him, who was learning to stand in a home that had rearranged itself without asking her. I felt tenderness for all of us. We were a table with a wobble that we were finally nomming. "We will try again," I whispered, not sure if I said it out loud. "Slowly." Daniel looked up and nodded as if he had heard. Eli slept on, dreaming of milk and light and voices that would learn to make room for each other. And the beeping kept time, steady and gentle, while the night passed over our small room like a blessing. We came home from the hospital in a quiet that felt like respect. The house seemed to hold its breath for us. We did not turn on the television. We did not put music on in the background. We sat at the kitchen table with our phones turned face down, the kettle cooling on the stove, the blue bird mug near my hand like a small, steady friend. Daniel looked from Maya to me. His shoulders were square, but his eyes were soft. "Let's make a plan," he said. His voice did not push. It invited. I nodded. Maya slid a notepad into the middle of the table. A pen rested on top. It felt like the first tool we needed. I think I should find a small studio, I said. I did not rush. Close by, within a month. The words did not taste like failure. They tasted like air. Maya let out a breath she had been holding. Nearby would be good. She said, close enough for tea. Daniel smiled. Close enough for me to carry a plant up the stairs, he added. We nodded together. We did not solve every detail. We agreed on what was next. We would look at the church bulletin board. We would ask the neighbor who knew everyone's business kindly. We would choose a place with light if we could. We would keep this plan alive but not let it chase us. Until then, I said, we need clear boundaries. I looked at Maya. Tell me what help looks like to you. She turned the pen between her fingers and looked at the blank page like it was a small path. Could we try set times? She asked. Morning help from 10 to 11, evening help from 5 to 6. If it's outside those times, we ask. If I say no, it means no for now, not forever. I felt those words land and settle like stones placed across a stream. Yes, I said. I will ask before I pick him up. I will ask before I change something. No is not a wound. I watched her face as I said that last part. She nodded. Her mouth softened. Thank you, she said. Daniel drew a simple calendar on a big sheet of paper. We made it the center of our small world. We wrote down plans in colored pens. Blue for Daniel, green for Maya, red for me, pediatrician visits. Daniel's early rides home from work, my therapy days, our stew night. We wrote walk on 2 afternoons for me. We wrote rest on Saturday morning and drew a gentle box around it so we would not forget. Rest for me, Maya asked, as if the word belonged to other people. Yes, Daniel said. Door closed, earplugs in, I take Eli out, no questions. Her eyes filled, not with crying, but with relief that looked like tears. I didn't know I could ask, she whispered. Now you don't have to, I said. It's written. We chose a small word to buy us time when feelings rose quickly. Pause, Maya said. If anyone says pause, we put the spoon down or the towel or the sentence. We breathe 3 breaths. Then we start again. We practiced it once, sitting at the table. Pause, Daniel said, smiling, and we all put our hands flat on the wood and breathed together. Even the house seemed to follow along. We talked about Daniel's habit of standing between us and translating. He looked at his hands. I have been trying to please everyone, he said, and failing both of you. You don't have to be the bridge every time, I said. We can walk to each other. Maya reached out and touched his wrist. Thank you for trying, she said, but you can step back too, that will help. When we finished, we did not make a speech. We poured tea. The kettle sighed. I held the mug with the blue birds and felt the warmth in my fingers. Daniel stuck the calendar to the fridge with a magnet shaped like a lemon. It looked ordinary. It felt like a promise we could touch. The next morning, I went to therapy. Daniel sat in the waiting room with a paperback and a coffee and looked up every time someone walked by. Dr. Rao met me with a smile that understood where I had been. How are you breathing? She asked. We practiced counting. In for 4, out for 6. Make the exhale longer, she said. Let your body know it can let go. We practiced words. She showed me a picture of an orange and asked me to name it, not to test me, but to let me feel the word return without fear. Orange, I said, and we both smiled. She gave me a simple list for attention. Name what you feel. Choose what you do, she said. I wrote name, choose, on a small card and tucked it into my pocket. At home, I made another card with 3 lines. Ask first. Breathe longer out than in. 2 things can be true. I kept it near my new mug. When my chest tightened, I touched the card. When my hands moved toward the spoon drawer without thinking, I touched the card. When I felt the old urge to fill a silence, I touched the card and let the quiet do its own good work. On Thursday, I went to a support group at the community center. The room was simple and kind. Chairs in a circle, a pot of coffee, a plate of crackers someone always remembered. People spoke in small sentences. No one tried to solve anyone else. A woman with gray curls said, "You are not alone." A man with tired eyes said, "I thought I was losing my mind. I was only losing my old life." A thin woman with a soft scarf around her neck said, "Grief has seasons." She said it like she had learned it by walking through all of them. "Some days are winter," she said. You do not plant then. You do not demand flowers. You keep the kettle filled. You rest. I took that sentence home like a candle, careful not to let the flame go out. Maya met me at the door with Eli on her hip. How was it? She asked. Good, I said. They reminded me that grief has seasons. She looked down at Eli's hair and smiled. That would explain a lot, she said. I've been trying to have spring every day. No wonder I am so tired. We laughed softly. Daniel came in from the porch and kissed the tops of our heads like we were parts of the same hope. We began to build new habits the way you stack stones, steady and small. On Mondays and Fridays during my morning hour, I ran the vacuum in the living room and wiped the kitchen table. I did it slowly. I did it because I said I would, and also because moving kindly helped my mind settle. If I wanted to hold Eli outside of those times, I asked, "Is now a good time?" Sometimes Maya said, "Yes, please," right away. Sometimes she said, "Not now, give me 10 minutes." When she said no, I poured tea. I watched the steam climb and fade. I told myself no was not a door closing. It was a plan keeping us safe. It helped. Tuesday evenings became hours. "Show me your stew," Maya said, almost shy. "Teach me like I'm a beginner." I took out the old recipe card with my pencil notes. We moved around the kitchen like we had learned a slow dance. Onion first, then garlic, then the meat patted dry so it would brown and not steam. She sprinkled salt from the small dish we kept near the stove on cooking nights. I kept my hand off the big salt she liked on the shelf. We reached for the cumin at the same time and touched fingers. We laughed. "You first," she said. "No, you." We shared the jar like it was a small treasure. She skimmed the broth with a spoon until it ran clear. I stirred with a steady rhythm. The pot filled the room with a smell that felt like memory and food at the same time. We bumped shoulders and did not apologize. We wiped spills without comment. When the stew was ready, Daniel tasted it like someone blessing food, eyes closing just a little. "It tastes like home," he said. It made us all sit down without thinking. Eli banged his palms on the high chair tray and smiled like he knew we had made something more than dinner. Another day, a laundry basket sat between us on the floor. "Teach me your way," Maya said, holding up a towel. I showed her my thirds and then a half. It made a neat rectangle that fit on the shelf without effort. She showed me her tight roll for baby blankets, small and precise. "These fit in a narrow drawer," she said. We tried both. We decided on a middle fold for dish towels, small, flat, easy to grab. It felt like a simple kind of piece. We put labels on the drawers that were shared. Teaspoons, soup spoons, dish towels. We left one small space unlabeled on purpose, as if to tell ourselves it was okay for one thing in the kitchen to roam. When the spoon drawer changed a little, we smiled instead of sighing. Sometimes things move. We learned not to give it meaning it did not deserve. We kept practicing our pause. One afternoon, the baby cried and the kettle whistled and someone knocked at the door. 3 sounds at once. Maya said, "Pause," and we all froze, smiled, and breathed. Daniel turned off the kettle. I went to the door. Maya picked up Eli. The moment did not pull us apart. It might have before. I walked most days. To the lake and back, with a rest on a particular bench whose wood was warmed by the afternoon sun. I watched the light move across the water and thought of the day I had felt the world wobble under me. I felt grateful for the bench, and for Mrs. Green, and for the paramedic who had looked me in the eyes and told me I was not alone. Sometimes I met a neighbor and we spoke of small things. Sometimes I walked in silence and counted my steps. I carried my card in my pocket. When my breath ran ahead of me, I slowed and made the exhale longer. I let the quiet do what quiet does. There were small surprises. One morning, Maya put a folded note by my mug that said, "Thank you for asking first. It helps me breathe." Another day, I left her a note that said, "Thank you for saying no without guilt. It helps me trust you." They were not dramatic words. They were common and true. We found ourselves quoting the phrase that had become our path. 2 things can be true. We said it when we forgot. We said it when we remembered. Maya said it on a day when the baby was clingy and my chest felt tight. 2 things can be true, she said. He needs me. You need space. We can do both. She handed Eli to Daniel and sent me to sit with tea. It felt like someone had aligned 2 stars. Once I moved a pot holder to a hook near the stove because it made sense to my hands. Later, Maya found it and looked at me. I looked at her. Two things can be true, I said. You like the counter clean, I like to reach without thinking. She smiled. How about one on the hook and one in the drawer? A middle way, I said. Our specialty. Apology found its place in the house and did not feel like a guest anymore. One late afternoon, we took Eli in his stroller to the lake. The light was honey soft. We walked slowly, not to tire me, not to rush anyone. We watched sparrows hop on the path and small boats shift on their ropes. We sat on the bench that knew us. Maya turned to me, her face was open and unguarded. I was wrong to call you dramatic, she said. Her voice did not tremble, it was steady and kind. I was afraid, I was tired, I forgot that grief is not a show. The words landed like balm. They did not erase the past, they touched it gently. I nodded and felt my shoulders loosen. I pushed too much, I said. I came in with old ways and forgot this is your nest. We both exhaled at the same time. It sounded like a small wave withdrawing from a shore. She reached for my hand. I gave it. We sat like that, our palms warm, the stroller handle between us like a small bridge. Daniel came toward us from the snack stand with a bottle of water and a paper bag. He saw our joined hands and smiled. We're all learning, he said, as if he had been saving those words for that exact moment. He handed me the water and Maya a small packet of crackers. Eli slept with his mouth open, peaceful as a small moon. We carried our practice into the evenings. Daniel took bedtime 3 nights a week, like he had written on the calendar. He told his boss no now and then. He told us he had. Maya closed the bedroom door on Saturday mornings and slept without apology until the sun climbed well into the sky. I sat with the monitor and the kettle and felt honored to be the quiet in the house. There were slips, of course there were. One night I reached for Eli at the end of my evening hour without asking. Maya's not now came out sharper than either of us wanted. I stepped back and went to my room. I touched my card. I breathed out longer than in. I came back in a minute. I felt stung, I said. I was sharp, she said. I'm sorry. We both let it go, like you shake out a towel and try again. There were days when my brain felt slow again and my mouth couldn't catch up. I said the box instead of microwave and then laughed at myself before anyone else could. I know what you mean, Maya said, pointing and smiling. Microwave. The word didn't hurt. It felt like a borrowed coat that fit again. Sometimes Daniel tried to fix things and then stopped himself. He would open his mouth and then close it and look at us, waiting. We learned to talk to each other directly. When you put the baby lotion on the top shelf, I would say, I cannot reach it. I can keep it on the second shelf, she would answer. It felt like water finding a level. On the fridge under the calendar, we put a short list. Ask first. Pause. 2 things can be true. Rest matters. It was not a poster. It was a reminder you could catch with your eyes while pouring milk. It kept us from falling into old grooves. It helped us make new ones. On a Wednesday, while folding little socks, I told Maya what the man with the tired eyes had said at the group. I thought I was losing my mind. I was only losing my old life, I said. She stood still a second, then nodded slowly. I feel that, she said. After Eli was born, I kept waiting for my old life to come back. It didn't. I kept getting angry at the present like it was rude. We both smiled at that. 2 things can be true, I said. We miss what was, we love what is. Maya put her head against the cupboard door for a breath. Thank you for saying that, she said. It makes me feel less wrong. You are not wrong, I said. You are new, she laughed softly. So are you, she said. We stood in the kitchen and let the truth be bigger than our fear for a moment. We kept cooking once a week. We added bread one night. Maya learned to knead by pushing with the heel of her hand. I learned to let go and let the dough rest without poking it. Daniel cleaned up without knowing we were watching him and appreciating him. Eli banged his spoon and made sounds like he was trying out the joy in his throat. We began to look at studio listings. We circled one near the park with a small balcony and a bright window. Saturday, Daniel said. After Maya's rest, I added. Maya laughed. After my rest, she said, like she had finally made friends with the word. We wrote the appointment on the calendar in red and circled it twice. Eli tried to eat the corner of the paper, and we all decided that meant good luck. I started humming again, not to fill space, but because I wanted to. Sometimes I hummed a hymn. Sometimes I hummed a silly song Daniel loved when he was 5. Maya started humming back without knowing she had. We made a soft music that carried the afternoons. We did not erase what had happened. We made room for it. Sometimes when the house was still, I thought of the word I heard by the office door. Burden. It did not burn the way it had that day. It sat next to other words now. Nuance. Plan, rest, help. It did not win. It did not even try. On a night when the sky was clear and stars were small and shy, I stood at the sink and washed my bluebird mug. Maya dried it and handed it back like a precious thing. "I am glad you have this," she said. "I am glad I have this," I said. We smiled. The kitchen light made a golden circle around us. Eli slept. Daniel read in the other room. The world was still complicated. It was also kind. We kept saying the phrase that had saved us. "Two things can be true," we said when the spoon drawer looked different. "Two things can be true," we said when I needed quiet and the baby needed noise. "Two things can be true," we said when Daniel needed to say no at work and yes at home. The words gave us room, and in that room we grew. We were not perfect, and we did not aim for that any longer. We aimed for steady. We aimed for honest. We aimed for enough sleep to be kind. We made space for grief and space for laughter. We made space for a baby and a mother-in-law and a daughter-in-law and a son who had been trying to hold all of us without putting his own feet on firm ground. We were different people than we had been a month before. We were softer around the edges and stronger in the middle. We had a plan for the next steps. We had a shared calendar and a list on the fridge and a word to buy us time. We had stew and laundry and walks and small birds to point out and quiet to share. When little frictions came, we used the tools we had agreed on. We said pause. We breathed. We asked, "Is now a good time?" We said, "That stung," and we answered, "I hear you." We said, "I was wrong," and we answered, "I forgive you," with our actions as much as with our mouths. If you had looked at us through the kitchen window one of those evenings, you would have seen nothing dramatic. You would have seen a kettle at rest, a calendar with writing, a baby asleep in a small room, a blue bird mug on a table. You would have heard soft talk and an occasional laugh. You would have seen a family learning. We stayed there on that quiet path, taking one careful step and then another. We made space for and we allowed both. We held two things can be true like a small, shining coin in our pocket. When we reached for it, it was there. When we forgot it, one of us would say the words out loud, and the air would ease. And the house, which had once felt too tight, began to feel wide enough to hold all of us, the baby, the grief, the plan, the hope, without anyone having to hold their breath. We were still ourselves. We were growing, too. We were making our way back to each other, slowly, kindly, with a blue bird mug cooling on the table and the calendar saying, in its simple way, that tomorrow might be hard and good at the same time. Two things can be true. It gave us room to keep going. Moving day was soft and bright. The studio had a wide window that faced a small tree and a piece of sky. Light fell across the floor like a friendly hand. Maya came in first, holding a plant with glossy leaves. "It likes morning sun," she said, and set it on the windowsill. Daniel followed with a small toolbox and a grin. "Where do you want the shelf?" he asked. We looked around and chose a spot above the little table. He checked the angle twice, drilled slowly, and wiped the dust with the sleeve of his shirt. "There," he said, proud and gentle. We unpacked little things, the kinds of things that make a room mine. My shawl over the back of the chair. My index cards in the top drawer. The photo of my husband on the shelf, his smile catching the light. Next to it, a new frame with a photo of all of us, Daniel, Maya, me, and Eli with his round, curious eyes. Maya watered the plant and looked around like she was testing the quiet. "It has good light," she said, softer now. "It does," I said. We both stood by the window and watched a bird hop on the fence. We didn't need more words. Daniel checked the smoke alarm with a careful hand. He opened and closed the front door to make sure it didn't stick. He set his toolbox by the sink and hugged me long. "5 minutes away," he said into my hair. "Text me even if you only need a nail." We stood together in the small kitchen. The kettle sat on the stove like an old friend. I reached for it and smiled. "First boil," Daniel said. Maya laughed. "Make it a good one," she said. Her voice was warm. They did not stay long. They did not hover. "We'll go so you can sit," Maya said. "Send me a picture when the plant catches the light." Daniel kissed my cheek and picked up the toolbox. At the door, he turned and looked at me the way boys look when they are leaving home. "I love you, Mom," he said. "I love you too," I said. When the door closed, the quiet changed. It was not empty. It was full of soft things. The room had that new place smell, clean wood, a little dust, a hint of the paint. I filled the kettle and set it on the flame. The first whisper of steam felt like a blessing. The chipped mug from my old life was gone now. In its place, the mug Maya had given me waited on the counter, light and steady, blue birds flying in a small circle. I held it in my hands and felt the smooth rim. "You will do," I told it, smiling to myself. It felt like permission to begin again. I poured tea and sat by the window where the light made a warm square on my lap. The plant looked happy. The photo of my husband caught the sun. I looked at him and at the family beside him. My heart ached and settled at the same time. "We're okay," I said out loud. "We are learning." I thought of the hospital hallway and Dr. Rao's word. Grief. It was still true, but softer at the edges, like a stone worn by water. The stroke slowed my body and gave me a gift I hadn't known I needed. Nuance. The space between either and or. The room where two truths can sit side by side and not push each other away. My phone buzzed on the table. A video came through. Eli laughing at a wooden spoon like it was the most wonderful thing he had ever seen. His laugh lifted me. After the video, a message from Maya, "Sunday stew at our place, teach me again?" I felt my face open into a smile. I typed back, "Yes," slowly. It felt like the right way to promise. I sat a little longer and let the tea grow warm in me. The white noise of the street moved in and out like a tide. The plant's leaves turned their faces to the light. The blue birds on my mug looked like they might take off any minute, but they stayed, and I did too. If you are listening now, I want to leave you with this. What looks like drama can be pain that doesn't know how to dress itself. What sounds like sharpness can be fear trying to keep a home from falling apart. Try to leave room for each other. Try to say, two things can be true. Thank you for sitting with me, for breathing with me, for letting this story be slow. If you are up late and the house is quiet and your chest feels heavy, I hope the kettle whispers for you. I hope a small bird lands somewhere you can see it. I hope you feel less alone. May your pauses be treated with kindness. May your grief have seasons. May you find a middle way at the drawer, at the table, in the heart. And may there always be enough light in your window to make a place for both the hurt and the hope to sit together, warm and welcome.